Hello, I am Ruby Falconer. Today's date is December 28th, 2020, and this is a Shamanic Egyptian Astrological update for the week ahead. We opened this week with the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter still in effect. The exact conjunction was a week ago today. It was on the solstice in the sign Aquarius. Both of these planets moved into the sign Aquarius in the previous week. So they're new to the sign Aquarius. This does represent the ending of the Great Shift alignment, as I've been saying for a while. So that has completed itself. And new energy is starting to come in, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute here. But first of all, I want to acknowledge that the Saturn-Jupiter, Saturn is Sobek, the old king. Jupiter is Horus, the young king. This energy is still very present. And that's that feeling of, on the one hand, things are expanding and simultaneously they're also contracting. So it's kind of keeps you stuck for one thing. And Saturn is giving form to the new Jupiterian energy, and Jupiter is blowing out and expanding the old Saturnian energy. So these two are happening at the same time, pressing against each other in many ways, and we can feel the tension of that. That's still very much in effect. So I want to acknowledge that. We do have a new moon, which is happening tomorrow on Tuesday, the 29th, and it will be on the 8th degree of Cancer. In Shamanic Egyptian Astrology, Cancer is allied with Nut and Geb, who are the divine parents. You know, in traditional astrology, Cancer represents home, family, roots, safety, security, stability. It represents the places such as home, family, tribe, where we look to for a feeling of safety and security. In the Egyptian pantheon, Nut and Geb are the divine parents. Nut is the sky goddess who arches over the sky. Her fingers and her toes touch the horizons. Geb is the earth who reaches up to her. These two are lovers. They love each other. And so he reaches up to his beloved with his mountains and his trees. And together, these two create a container. Just as parents, ideally, archetypically, are supposed to do in a family unit. They're meant to hold a container in which the children can grow up with. And in this metaphor with Nut and Geb, all of us, all of the beings who live on the surface of the earth, all of the humans, all of the non-human animals, we are Nut and Geb's children. And the home that they give us, the container that they give us, is the biosphere, the atmosphere, the air that we breathe, the earth that we walk on. Without those two, there would be no life on planet Earth. And so as we enter this full moon window, and the full moon window, it's the day on either side, the day of the full moon and the day on either side of the full moon. So in this case, that's today, the 28th, tomorrow, the 29th, Wednesday, the 30th. That's the full moon window. And if you like to do rituals for the new moons or the full moons, this is a good time to do a ritual in appreciation of our home. You know, this is our home for as long as we are in human form. We're here on earth. And to express gratitude and appreciation to our divine parents for holding this biosphere, for holding this container. And that's particularly important during this time on earth, when our home, the safety of our home, the purity of our home, the cleanliness of our earth and our air is in question as we move forward. You know, with climate change and everything that's going on our planet, it's an appropriate time to give thanks for the safety and security that we are given, and hope that that continues. You know, hope that we will continue to have a home here on earth as we move forward into the future. Now, as I've said many times, the conjunction of Saturn, Sobek, the old king, of Horus, Jupiter, Horus, the young king, their alignment, which took place a week ago on the 21st at the solstice, and the fact that they've now moved into Aquarius, this completed the Great Shift alignment, the dominating energy of 2020, which is that conjunction between Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn. That conjunction is no more. Jupiter and Saturn are still conjunct. They'll remain conjunct not for a long time. Jupiter is going to start moving along pretty quickly here, but for this week they're still conjunct. And if you have not had a chance to go out and look at in the night sky, you can still do that. They're still very close to each other. What you'll notice now, Jupiter has passed Saturn. Jupiter's moving to the west. They're both moving to the west. But from our perspective here on Earth, to the east, Jupiter has picked up some speed and is now ahead of Saturn. And over the next many days, it'll be separating out further and further and further. But it's still quite a beautiful thing to see if you haven't seen it, or to continue to observe it. It's a wonderful way to have a kind of in-person relationship to what actually goes on in the night sky. You know, what astrology, what those charts and what those numbers on pieces of paper, what they actually represent. You know, we're seeing an actual conjunction with our naked eye by seeing these two come very close to one another, and now they're pulling apart. It's what's called a waning conjunction. So that's still going on. And so we're still having that influence, you know, that pressing in of energy coming together, and simultaneously energy pulling apart. And the tension that brings us, you know, we can certainly feel that tension during this time. And we do have the energy that is going to be dominating 2021 coming in now, and it's going to be getting stronger as we move into the weeks ahead, but we already feel it. And the dominant energy of 2021, and also to a large extent 2022 as well, comes from a square between the planets Saturn, our old friend Sobek, the old king, is still going to be part of this equation. A square between Saturn and Uranus, who in the Egyptian pantheon is Wajet, the Cobra Kundalini goddess. Now, this particular square, a square is a challenging relationship, it's a 90-degree relationship, is part of a 45-year cycle. So it's even longer than the Saturn-Pluto cycle, which was dominant last year. That's a 38-year cycle. This particular cycle, the one that we're in, began in 1988-89. And we are moving into the third quarter square, the last square. We've already had a first quarter square, we've had an opposition, now we're having a third quarter square. There will be a new conjunction of Saturn and Uranus in 2025, so that's a ways away yet. So right now they're moving into square with one another. And what that's going to mean for us is that the energies that began to unfold in 1988, 1989 are going to have a kind of an uptick. And one of the things that we can know that this is about already, you know, Uranus rules Aquarius, Aquarius rules technology. If you look back to 1988, 1989, this was when social media really began to come to the forefront and, you know, began to be operative, you know, as a driving force on the planet. So we can expect during this time that these two are in square relationship with one another, that there will be unexpected advances in this whole realm of technology, particularly social media, probably artificial intelligence, various aspects of Aquarian tools that we have, science, technology. This is all the realm of Aquarius and also Uranus. During this time, Saturn, first of all, Jupiter and Saturn are going to be in Aquarius. Uranus is in Taurus, which is an earth sign, has a lot to do with the energies of the earth itself. In the Egyptian pantheon, this is Hathor, who is about the lushness of planet Earth. So we can expect there to be some challenges around climate change, challenges during this next period of time, challenges around perhaps more unexpected things happening in terms of weather events, climate events taking place in the next couple of years. We can also expect some advances, some technological advances to come forth and move us forward in this particular area as well. And the thing about this particular square, excuse me just a second here, we can expect there to be a certain amount of volatility because Uranus rules earthquakes, it rules explosions, it rules volcanoes, volcanic eruptions. Saturn gives form to things, so we can expect there to be these sorts of things happening. Their form is given to these kinds of unexpected events during the next period of time, the next couple of years. But there's also a tremendous amount of opportunities. So we have volatility on the one hand, but we also have tremendous opportunities as well. Because Uranus is always about the unexpected. And so it can be difficult things that happen. It can also be amazing breakthroughs, technological and scientific breakthroughs. And one of the things that I've been saying all year is that I have no doubt that the technological nerds, a lot of whom, people who have a lot of Aquarius in their chart, are figuring out ways to make technology work better during the time when everybody was limited. So to make social media work better, to make Zoom, and to make, you know, the different kinds of things that we use to communicate with one another, distance learning, distance communications, worldwide things, you know, that we've had those things for a while, but during this year of COVID-19, when it was harder to travel and it was harder to meet with other people, and people like myself had to start doing things online because I couldn't do as much in person. So, you know, those sorts of things, you know, there's going to be things that come out of this situation that are going to advance us even further into the technological age. And some of this is going to be around artificial intelligence. And it's going to come with some challenges, some deficits, as well as benefits. There's no doubt about that. So to look at what's starting to happen right now is we have both Jupiter and Saturn basically in a applying square to Uranus. They're not exact yet. They're applying means they're on their way. It's what we would call a waxing square. They're moving toward it. Jupiter by the middle of the month is going to be passing rather quickly through a square to Uranus. And by the time we get to the middle of the month, we're going to have a certain amount of volatility and intensity coming up. We've got a number of things that happen in the middle of January, starting around the 13th and going on through about the 23rd. And that does cover Inauguration Day. So we're going to have this planet Taurus, Mars moving into the sign Taurus. Mars has been in Aries for 6 months. And so it's finally going to move out of its home sign, out of Aries, and move into Taurus. It's going to move through a square to Jupiter, through a square to Saturn. It's going to move into a conjunction to Uranus. In fact, there's a Mars-Uranus conjunction on Inauguration Day. So there's going to be a certain amount of volatility that comes with this territory, and that's going to in many ways be the hallmark of the year. So right as we start moving into January, we are going to get a sense of what this particular year is going to be about. So the events that take place in the month of January, particularly those 10 days from somewhere around the 13th to the 23rd, is going to give us a sense of what the entire year is going to be about. And I do want to take note, you know, without being alarmist or you know, anything like that, I want to take note that on Christmas Day, December 25th, here in the United States, in the city of Nashville, there was an explosion early in the morning of an RV, and they still don't know exactly what was going on there. They think it was a suicide bomber who blew himself up and the RV, but it did a tremendous amount of damage. He was not apparently trying to kill humans. You know, there was a warning, and so as far as we know, there were no human deaths. We don't know about non-human deaths, dogs, cats, whatever. Tremendous amount of damage, and of course there is the trauma of the explosion itself, of the shattering. Uranus is the great shatterer. That's Wajat. That's what she does. She shatters things. The shattering of this quiet street in kind of an old part of Nashville, you know, that's popular with tourists. Early in the morning, so there weren't a lot of people around, and there was a warning, but nonetheless, you know, is the trauma and the shock and the uncertainty around that. And what it has done is shattered that sense of safety and security and stability for those people. I have no doubt about that. So that's already happened, and that it does we do have Saturn moving into a square to Uranus. Uranus is going to be slowing down to station. It's going to be changing direction on January 14th. And so Saturn and Jupiter both are already in a square to Uranus, about 5 degrees away, applying. Nonetheless, it's there. The way I always think of this, if a baby was born today and I looked at his chart, I would know this child has Saturn square to Uranus. So it would have that energy in their personality of the kind of tug of war between, on the one hand, unpredictability. And, I want to reinforce that Uranian energy, Wajet energy, is unpredictable in difficult ways. This is earthquakes, volcanoes, explosions, but also unpredictable in really positive ways as well, because it's the aha moments, it's the opportunities that just come out of nowhere and suddenly, they're there for us. It's the unexpected, which we can label it good, we can label it bad, but its primary quality is that it's unexpected. And Saturn gives form to that in some ways, while at the same time, Uranus is blowing Saturn's form apart. Saturn is also giving form to that unpredictability. That's the nature of the tug of war. Square is always a challenge between these two, and it's going to go kind of back and forth. So I do expect that this next year, and 2022 as well, for much of 2022, is going to be providing us with many unexpected opportunities in our private lives and in our collective lives, and opportunities to do things in new ways, as well as a considerable volatility and unexpected things happening. So what I would like to offer as a journey today is actually a star journey. This conjunction of Saturn, Sobek, the old king, and Jupiter, Horus, the young king, is in alignment with the star Altair. That's spelled Altair. And those of you who are familiar with the summer triangle, the summer triangle is composed of two stars, Vega, which is a really bright star, a really beautiful star in Capricorn. Deneb, Vega is in the constellation the Lyre. Deneb is in the constellation Cygnus, which is the swan, and they're close to one another, and then they both come to a point, so it's kind of an elongated triangle with Altair. And Altair is in the constellation Aquila, which means eagle. And if you go out in the night sky, we can still see, right after dark, when we look at the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter, if you look more to the west, you can actually see the summer triangle. It's still there. It's beginning to set, but you can find Vega. Vega's more directly above. Then you can see Deneb more to the west. And then if you take the two of them and bring them to a point, you're going to find Altair. Now, and then if you keep going, you'll find Jupiter and Saturn. So that summer triangle is pointing, Altair is pointing, the eagle is pointing at the young king and the old king, and that alignment between the two of them, that conjunction that represents the end of an old way of being and the beginning of a new way of being. And Altair is in the sign Aquarius, on that same degree, the second degree of Aquarius, that both Saturn and Jupiter, Jupiter's already on that degree, Saturn is approaching it. So it's early in the sign Aquarius, early in that energy of the visionary, of new energy coming in, science, technology, new ideas. In the Shamanic Egyptian Astrological Pantheon, Aquarius is aligned with Ptah, who is a creator god who created heaven and earth. And what's most important about Ptah is that he creates the world with the words that he speaks, and the words that he speaks are connected to his heart. His tongue is connected to his heart. And there's such a huge message for all of us now, because we're in a place where it's time to create something new. As I said over and over and over again, The great shift alignment of 2020 was about the dismantling of structures as we have known them. So it's been the dismantling of the structure of society, and that has meant for many of us a dismantling of personal structures as well, because many of us are affected by the larger dismantling that has been going on in society. And in one way or another, most of the people I do chart readings for throughout this year have said, what I've been doing is coming to an end, and I feel like it's time to think of what I'm going to be doing. And I've been saying all fall, when I've been doing readings for people, it's time to start thinking about what that is that you want it to be, because when we get to the first of the year, it's going to be time to put it in place. So we're at that point. Everything has pretty much fallen apart as much as it can. Now, it doesn't mean, again, it's going to be a volatile year, so there's still going to be some shatterings taking place. One of the metaphors that I have for the relationship between Saturn and Uranus is an egg. The egg is a container for new life. There's a chick inside that egg. There's the albumin, which is the food that feeds the chick. The container itself is the egg itself, the eggshell. Well, at a certain point, that little chick inside that egg gets too big for the egg and starts pecking at the inside of the egg. And the point where that egg shatters, that's the Uranian moment. So this isn't a conjunction between Saturn and Uranus. This is a tug of war. And so what that means is sometimes we're going to be aware of the need to give form to new things, form to new ideas, form to new visions, which is the Uranian energy. And then sometimes we're going to be aware that the Uranian energy, that shattering, that awakening energy of Uranus is going to break apart any restrictions and limitations that comes from Saturn, Sobek, the old king. So it's kind of a challenge between the two of them. They're in a bit of a fight with each other during this time. And so it's not where they're working with each other or even in opposition to each other. They're challenging each other is the best way to think of it. So that's the energy that's going to be coming in really strongly very soon. So what I want to offer, the energy around Altair, it's a first magnitude star. It's something like the 15th brightest star in the night sky. So if you have a fairly clear sky, if it's the time of year when you can see it, you're going to be able to find Altair, particularly in the summer. But as I said, even now, if you go out to see the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, look to the west, you're going to be able to see Altair. If you've got your camera with a star app, just point up to the west and you'll find it. It's a bright star. So that triangle, that energy, that comes from the lyre, that's Vega, and comes from Deneb, the swan, comes and channels through the eagle, and the eagle is flying toward Jupiter and Saturn, toward the old king Sobek and the young king Horus. And so I want to invite all of us to go on a journey with this energy of Altair, which is about exploration. It's about new energy coming in. This is the time to really get in touch with that for yourself on a personal level, because if you felt like it was time for a change, it's time for a change. The time is here. It's time to start putting into place the types of changes that you want in your own life, because it's going to be time to create new structures. And the only caveat that I would give everyone is remember that as you create these new structures, there's a certain amount of volatility around them. There's going to be some resistance at times. There's going to be some shatterings at times. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't move forward. You need to move forward bravely and move forward in moving towards new, like an explorer, like you're a visionary who's trying new things and seeing what works and what doesn't work. So let's call in the energy of Altair and ask for support from this star being with this period that we're moving into, when it's time to start creating new personal and collective structures upon which to run our lives and to run the societies of the earth. So I invite you to get comfortable, take a couple of nice deep breaths. Feet flat on the floor if you're sitting up. If you're lying down, just feel the surface that you're lying upon. Nice deep breaths. And I invite you to imagine that you are standing at the top of a mountain. And it is nighttime, and it is incredibly clear, a bright, clear sky, shortly after dark. You're not near any cities. There's no light pollution. There's no air pollution where you are. It's as if you've stepped back in time, back before the encroachment of modern civilization on the natural world. And you can look up in the sky and you can see all these amazing stars. And position yourself so you are looking to the southwest. And you see them. You see Jupiter and Saturn. They are still so close to one another. Remember that planets don't twinkle. Stars twinkle, planets don't. Jupiter is a very bright object in the night sky, brighter than any of the stars around. So it's easy to find them. And you can see, if you've been watching them, you can see that they're a bit apart now. Not as close as they were a week ago, but they're still quite close to each other. And it's easy to find them. And so just take a moment to acknowledge these two. This is Horus, the young king, Sobek, the old king. They are in communion with each other. They've come to terms. They've been reconciled with each other. They are supporting each other. Sobek is willing to support the youth to come forth, the new energy to come forth, to help give it form. Horus is willing to listen to the voice of experience, the wisdom of the old king. He appreciates that. Take a moment to reflect how that's working in your own life. How these two forces, seemingly opposite, are coming into relationship with one another. And in your mind's eye, turn now to the west. And as you look above you, you see the very bright star Vega. You see Deneb, part of a dim cross of stars called the Northern Cross. And as you draw a line so the two of them come together, moving toward Jupiter and Saturn with these two lines, you find Altair, part of the Eagle constellation. And as you stand at the top of this mountain, connecting with this star, look at it with fuzzy eyes. Let your eyelids drop a bit. And find the star. You know where it is. You'll find it. And connect with it. And imagine that as you inhale, you breathe the energy of Altair, the explorer, the eagle. Altair carries the energy of the eagle. No creature on earth flies as high as an eagle. In the shamanic traditions of the American Indians, First Nations, First Americans, the eagle is spirit. Not a messenger of spirit, not a connection to spirit. Eagle is spirit. Eagle can soar higher than any creature on earth and then soar back down and glide to the earth and land in a tree, on the earth itself. Tremendous breadth of movement for these amazing birds. So perhaps the messenger of Altair for you will be an eagle. Perhaps it will be something else, a direct line to the star itself, the star being, this member of the great star nations. I'm going to be quiet for a couple of minutes here and let you commune with Altair and allow yourself to be shown some very practical steps that need to be taken now. It's time. It's time to begin to implement your plan for creating your new container, your new structure for your life. It's time to put the changes you've been dreaming about, to begin to put them into practice, to implement them, to voyage into your own personal unknown, to explore your own future. Nice deep breath. Go on a journey with Altair, Aquila, the eagle. Imagine that as you inhale, you breathe in the energy of this star, and that your vision of the future becomes anchored in the cells of your body. And you are joined now on the top of your mountain by Isis, Queen Mother of Heaven, she who is with us through every process of transformation and change. And she wraps her rainbow wings around you and pulls you close and uses her magic to pull forth this connection with Altair into your DNA structure, into your cellular structure, cementing the changes that must happen in the days and weeks ahead. It is time. It is time to create your new normal. To begin the process, to put the steps into play. Nice deep breath. Lean back in your arms. Giving thanks to these powerful elemental, shamanic, archetypal forces. Take a nice deep breath. Come slowly back into the room. Thank you. We will talk again.